Hello, this is Southern Shift, episode 6. We're here today with Mateo Sass from the Equal Vote Coalition and myself, Ryan Gilio. We're going to be talking about various alternative voting methods from star voting and the ranked round robin. Is that correct, Sass?
Ranked robin is another one. Approval voting. There are a lot of really great options out there, and some not so great options. So we're going to talk about that.
All right. Once we get through our caucus updates, we'll get right into it. Starting out with the caucus updates, though, we're going to go ahead and dive right in to the administrative working group. It's our first working group of the week, Mondays at 5 p.m. So since last month, we've been kind of taking a look around the caucus, seeing where we can improve things. We're in the process of creating a additional non-partisan organization for mobilizing voters and doing some GOTV work. It's tentatively being called Arkansas Families for Progress, and I believe we're pretty close to getting that officially recognized federally. In the administrative working group, we've also been just doing retooling various working groups and just really refocusing on general development. Moving on from that, we have our media working group, which is where this fine podcast originates from. 3 o'clock every Tuesday. We've been doing things with this podcast specifically. We are also working on our next quarterly. We're actually putting out a call for submissions. It's going to be May Day focused, so pretty labor heavy. Labor history, news, any events that folks want to publicize. And we have that link to our email if you guys have any submissions that you want to send us. Let's see. We also, our deadline for that is going to be April 17th. So if you have anything written down, if you got any photos that you want to have included in that quarterly, just send it on through, and we'll get it printed out. We've also been starting to develop some caucus materials, pamphlets, flyers. As you can see here on the screen, we have the Be Progressive. We also have one of our first designs for general use, I guess. The Is This Pro-Life, showcasing a pretty rough scene over in Gaza. We also are still looking for more suggestions on that. So if you guys want to drop into a working group, media working group, give us a holler. Let's get some more stuff worked out. We're also doing some more podcast work, of course, every month. Just drop in, and we could use some more suggestions for ideas. We do have a couple things coming down the pipeline for the podcast itself. I believe we're going to be having a May Day episode as well. Not entirely sure what next month's is, but we'll be releasing our statement on that maybe a couple days after today. And if you have any questions concerning today's episode, just go ahead and put it down in the comments, and we'll get you answered. And then we have the electoral working group, same day, Tuesday, at 5 p.m. We've been trying to figure out ways to support current candidates here in the 2024 cycle, but we've also started to move towards the 2026 cycle, which sounds scary, but it's definitely one of those things that we have to start doing now before things get out of hand later on. And through that, we're developing new ideas, new strategies. We're training candidates, trying to find new candidates. I believe the caucus already has 6 that we're currently in the process of training. And a lot of those are going to be focused on the lower levels, like JP, local, etc. But if you're interested in that, just hop on in the Discord and we'll get you all settled. We're also working on what we're calling our Candidate Infrastructure Program, the CIP. We had a training a couple weeks ago, I want to say, 2 weeks ago maybe, and yeah, they're pretty low key, not like super info dump heavy. We really try to get with our candidates that attend, and we go through some numbers with them. We really get them more comfortable with the process, and we make sure that they are feeling more confident in the whole process of campaigning itself. And that's pretty much what we've been doing with the electoral. Mateo, you want to head up the legislative?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Miguel. I am the leader of not leader, but like the boss, I would say, of the legislative meetings every Friday at 3 p.m. The legislative meetings are mostly a place where people like us can come together and try to formulate ideas and draft those ideas into like real life policy bills. But I do say this with urgency, we do need more people to participate. The more people that come into these circles, the more we can make much more powerful, impactful bills. And with those bills, we want to seek out candidate outreach, seeking candidates for bills, people who would push these policies, not just in their campaigns, but in their communities. We want to see that happen in 2026. And we're also going to help these candidates to help build up their platforms. One of the biggest problems that we see overall, not just Arkansas, but just in the nation, we see a lot of candidates run on platforms with not really that much substance to it. They might have like the typical issues that they want to tackle, but they have no substance bills or any policy ideas with those issues. And that's what we want to like combat and help candidates with and try to formulate an actual like grassroots policy platform for them. And I do want to say one more announcement for locally for the Washington County. We have a ballot initiative for this November. It will be tackling around the issue of felon rights. Now, in Arkansas, once your incarceration is over, you have to go through many stages to get your vote back: probation, parole, and many fees with that. And we have a ballot initiative bill idea that will, at the very least, on the county level, try to change the procedure. It won't change the state law, but it will change the procedural law that will put more responsibility on the county government rather than the individual. And it will actually be much more cost efficient with the administrative government of Washington County assisting with the felons. So it's like a balance between helping people and actually solving the cost of that. And on the screen right now, we have the APDC legislation, where we overall will hope to share these policies with candidates in 2026 and also push, hopefully, in 2024. On the top left, you will see the Arkansas Guaranteed Jobs Act. And on the bottom, all the way to the right, you have Election Record Modernization Act. So overall, I don't know if Ryan wants to go in depth with these, but like overall, like these are the bills that we have been working really hard so far in the past months and weeks to formulate. And I do want to make one more announcement of the bills that we have recently created, and this ties in back with helping with candidates, which is creating talking points for these bills. Like, why is an Arkansas Jobs Guaranteed Act important? Why is a new Neighborhood Registration Act important? In order to push these bills in the mainstream in Arkansas. We have to create formulated talking points in support of these policies. Ryan, do you think I'm missing anything?
No. We are going to be starting to create some education programming to get folks really knowledgeable about the subjects that these bills are going to be taking on. We don't have any firm dates on that yet, but keep an eye out. It's coming. So with that, the legislative working group, by the way, is going to be every Friday at 3 p.m. And after the legislative working group, we have our labor working group, which is every Friday at 5 p.m. So the big thing that we have going on with this one is on March 26th, as you guys can see on the screen, we have a pretty low-key labor event. It's going to be full of food. We have childcare available during speaking portions. And it's going to be right next to the park itself, over at MacArthur Park here in Little Rock. We're going to be starting at 6 p.m., and we're just going to be talking about labor campaigns, what it means to be in a union, for topics. We do have some labor organizing discussions going on during that time, so we're not going to be recording it this time around. We want to make sure that those discussions are kept offline so that those folks aren't harassed at work or anything like that. Besides that, we also have our labor workbook that we've been working on. We have two sections out of, I want to say, 4 or 5 finished, and we're finalizing those other sections pretty shortly. We're looking to publish it online around May 1st, May Day. And outside of that, we have one current labor campaign going on. I believe it's kind of stalled out, but this is very typical for this kind of thing. We have another one that I believe we're going to be taking on soon, but we'll have to wait a little bit longer on that. Outside of those working groups, we do also have mutual aid and our event working groups. They're on hiatus as of right now. We are looking for facilitators to take on those roles. So if you are interested in assisting in mutual aid around the state, or if you love crafting events and getting folks together, doesn't matter if it's like a fundraiser or just a hangout barbecue, if that's something that you're interested in, please join the caucus, get involved. We have plenty of work for everybody, and there's just always something going on. So don't be shy. We could use you. And now, with those updates out of the way, we can get started with our main topic of the day. So, Sass, if you don't mind, I'm going to let you and Mateo take over. And if you wouldn't mind going ahead and introducing yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Sass. I'm the Deputy Director of the Equal Vote Coalition. The Equal Vote Coalition is a 501c3 nonprofit that advocates for true equality in the vote itself through research, education, outreach, and coalition building. And what does the equal vote mean? Well, that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today. So I'm pumped.
Well, welcome. Sorry. So, Sass, you and I have been knowing each other for a while, and I'm a credible fan of your work so far. And a great way to start this is actually just like a simple discussion. Like, many people would know a little bit of voting method reform, but they don't really know the meaning of it. So I was wondering, the first thing we do is if you can do a quick introduction of like what are the problems and what is voting method reform. And what I mean by problems is what are the problems that you're trying to solve with the voting method reform?
Yeah, we're solving a lot with a little here. It's pretty amazing, but kind of the most fundamental first thing, and we have a slide for this, is vote splitting. Great, you just stay on that. So Under the current system, you only get to support up to one candidate on your ballot when you go to vote per race. In elections where there's only two candidates in the race, that's fine. No problem. We can see the example on the left here where you've got a clear majority of voters, right? 60% prefer Luke Skywalker, only 40% prefer Darth Vader. Each voter votes for the candidate on their side, and Luke Skywalker wins. Everybody's, we're in good shape. Great. But now if you imagine we add Leia into the mix, and whether you call her Leia Organa or Leia Skywalker or Princess Leia or General Leia, whatever, it's Leia. Most of these 60% voters who like Luke also like Leia, and most voters who like Leia also like Luke. But they're not able to show that on their ballot when they go to vote. They're limited. They're constrained and restricted by the nature, the design of the ballot. And so then what happens is their votes get split between these two candidates that they all like both of. And so then what happens, we can see over on the right side, is that both Luke and Leia end up getting less. We see less support for them than what they actually have in the electorate. And they end up losing to the worst candidate, Darth Vader. And so it's a sort of a divide and conquer kind of thing going on. So this is kind of one of the core problems of the current system. And it turns out that it's solvable. We can fix this. It's just an engineering problem, really, at its core. And so, so I'll pause there. Miguel, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah. So simply voting method reform, such as start voting for in this example, or just overall, is trying to solve that voting split issue that we're seeing so far in many circumstances, such as a perfect example that we have seen voting method and the idea of vote splitting work perfectly is like in places like Alaska and many other places as well. Like California, for example, we have the California Senate race. We had two progressive Democrats splitting the vote, and you had a two runoff election. We have a Democrat and you have a Republican running now. Well, in a perfect world under voting method reform, you would probably see a Democrat versus a Democrat. So I think my only question I would say so far is, like, under these examples of vote splitting and people now recognizing this, what is like your to-go-to saying in trying to get people involved in voting method reform? Like, where should they begin? Like, how can they start organizing? How can they start like doing their research about what is voting method reform, and how can they better educate their communities about the importance of something like this in order to like fix this problem that we're seeing?
Well, let's not jump the gun too much. First, let's start with, how do we actually solve this problem? Like, it starts with understanding and knowing knowing what the solutions are before we can get into the how do we execute on them. So do you want to switch to the approval voting slide? The simplest way to solve this problem, whenever we get the approval voting slide up, is to simply remove the restriction on the ballot that only allows you to support up to one candidate. So if all we do is change the instructions and we say, instead of only being able to support one, you just vote for all the candidates you approve of, and then the most approved candidate wins. That right there is all you need to solve the vote splitting problem. You just need to be able to show a full range of support for each individual candidate on the ballot, and importantly, during the tally of the method, all of that support needs to be counted at the same time. And there are methods that are more expressive and more complex than this that are worth exploring and bring additional benefits. So this is the simplest version of eliminating vote splitting, which is necessary to achieve what I said earlier about equality in the vote. So I will mention that briefly. So what we mean by an equal vote, we're referring to one person, one vote, as defined by the U.S. Supreme Court in the 1964 case, Westbury v. Sanders, where the Supreme Court declared, based on the Equal Protections Clause of the 14th Amendment, that one person, one vote means The weight and worth of the citizen's vote, as nearly as is practicable, must be the same. And it took us about half a century to figure out what that means, but it's actually pretty simple. Effectively, the only way that I can know that the power of my vote is equal, the weight and worth of my vote is equal to yours, is if no matter how you vote, I can vote in an equal and opposite way. So if you, a way to test this, that a given voting method passes this, and there are many voting methods out there, is if you have an election with 3 candidates and it's a 3-way tie, and I vote for candidate A, and there's also candidates B and C, how would you have to vote to bring the election back to a 3-way tie? You would have to vote for B and C. If you can only vote for one of them, it's not going to come back to a 3-way tie. And then, somebody's vote has more power than the other. And that's actually based on which candidates are more similar to others. Is actually kind of how that imbalance of power happens. And so our current system is not one person, one vote, but approval voting is. And then there are other incredible, awesome proposals out there. But I'm going to pause again. Miguel, do you have questions about what we talked about so far?
Yeah. So you do mention approval voting, and for the most part, it is like one of the most simplified voting methods out there. But for the average person who's tuning in tonight, who doesn't know what voting method reform is so far, or like what is approval voting, would you be willing to say where approval voting is being used, and what has been the positive results coming out of those elections under approval voting?
Yeah. So approval voting has been adopted and implemented and used for 2 elections each in Fargo, North Dakota, and St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis has its 3rd one coming up pretty soon. Super excited for that. But the response we've seen has already been absolutely incredible. Not only have we seen like an increase in voter turnout, we've also seen a lot of lobbying to keep it, because in North Dakota, the legislature was trying to undo the work that was done in Fargo, and Fargo voters showed out in force to prevent that from happening. We've also seen a change in the candidates. In the second approval voting election in Fargo, there was a bunch of candidates got together, candidates who were running for like the same race. So there were like 2 mayoral candidates, I think 5 for commissioner and like 3 for school board or something, or maybe 4 for school board. And they all came together and they pooled their money to pay for a mailer that went out that had all of their faces on them. And they said, approve all of these candidates, approve all of them. And so it dramatically shifted the dynamics for the candidates as well, and made a much more friendly race. And some of those candidates won, which was really awesome to see. And so, it's been really, really incredible to see, just how something so simple can be so powerful. For this particular demographic I'm speaking to right now, they might also be interested in learning that in St. Louis's first approval voting election for mayor, that led to the election of the first Black woman mayor ever. And then on like her first day, she like shut down some local jail or something, which is important to know, that alternative voting methods are not biased in favor of any political faction. It's just that in St. Louis, the electorate happened to be more progressive than the government that they were getting. And a lot of that had to do with vote splitting, where they'd have multiple great progressive candidates who were splitting the vote with each other. But in this particular St. Louis race, there were 2 progressive candidates who ran, and voters were able to approve both of them, which was really great. And the system that they had is they had approval voting, primary, nonpartisan, everybody's on the same ballot, and then the top 2 went off to a top 2 runoff where they voted between them. So those 2 progressive candidates ended up going to the runoff, and the incumbent didn't even win his own ward. So it was really incredible to see, because then those 2 candidates didn't split the vote with each other. It was really, really awesome. So this has been really fantastic, and there's lots of work being done in Utah and California and Maryland, and more work in North Dakota and Missouri for approval voting, and it's all very exciting, and I'm pumped to see where approval voting goes.
Yeah, and Joe in the comment section says it always starts local. and has to grow from there. And yeah, I would say that's a really good statement, Joe. Like we are seeing so far from what Sass is saying that these voting methods so far in these two locations have yielded much more positive results. And I'm willing to say that maybe one of them actually, not one of them, but both of them has actually led to a decrease in like polarization that we're seeing so far in the nation so far. And that's a really good thing so far. I know I'm saying so far a lot. So just to wrap my head around this for the viewer, voting method reform is designed overall for a lot of things. The decreased voting splitting, to also depolarize the nature that we're seeing politics right now, which is just horrible right now. And a third thing is voting method reform is designed to be more closer to the center of public opinion, but center of public opinion, not to be specific to the electorate, not that it's in the middle of a political spectrum, but like center of public opinion.
Yeah. Another thing that we're trying to accomplish here is that eliminating vote splitting and empowering honest voting and expressive voting is it reduces the influence of money in politics. And you can actually really, like with star voting, which I'd love to talk about next if you want to pull up the slide for that. Star voting eliminates the electability bias inherent in the strategy of the voting method. So it doesn't eliminate all electability bias, but it's this part of electability bias. And I'm going to cite an example of this in just a moment that I think y'all are going to love about Chicago. But first, let me go over what star voting is. So in star voting, voters score candidates from 0 up to 5 stars. So you give your favorites 5 stars, your last choice is 0, or leave them blank. It's the same thing. Equal scores are allowed. You are allowed to score multiple candidates equally, and then you score, you score other candidates as desired. And then the way it's tallied is just addition. So the 2 candidates with the most stars overall are finalists, and then your 1 full vote automatically counts toward the finalist you scored higher than the other. And the finalist with the most votes wins. And so this does all sorts of wonderful things. It's a step up from approval voting in terms of expression, and it does an even better job at incentivizing honesty. But getting at this money in politics thing, somebody who's active in the space, his name's Sam Hyson. He wrote a couple Medium articles about this. He lives in Chicago, and there was a recent Chicago mayoral race, and they were using Choose One voting. But he also, what he did is he ran a poll where people would vote on mayor using Choose One voting, using approval voting, using star voting, and ranked choice voting as well, which is one that y'all might have heard of. It's its own system, and we might talk about that if we have time. And what he found was that approval voting significantly, well, he compared the not just the outcomes, but also looking at, like, basically he calculated a ratio of the performance of a candidate to like how much money they had raised. And approval voting had almost like closed that gap, and star voting completely closed that gap and then went a little bit further. Now this polling wasn't through a polling company. There was a little bit of bias in it, but the takeaway is that unlike Choose One voting and ranked choice voting, which still were subject to a lot of like electability bias, and that the candidates with the most money performed the best, under approval voting, especially under star voting, we saw almost no connection between the amount of money a candidate raised and how well they actually performed, which is really, really cool. It's better than I was expecting. So it's a really powerful thing that we can do with voting reform here first. And real quick, I just saw somebody in the comments wrote first past the post. So first past the post is a more complex, older name for Choose One voting. Choose One voting is the simplest, is the easy name to go with. So I call it Choose One voting. A lot of people call it Choose One voting. That's the simple one. People also call it plurality voting. It's multiple names for the same thing. They're all the same, but Choose One voting is, I think, the most accessible name. So I'm going to shut up for a sec.
No, I think that was a good way of moving into our next segment. But before we do, I do want to ask one more question. So you do mention both star voting and approval voting. And if you, the viewer, if you go online and you type in Equal Vote Coalition, which is another group that SAS is a member of, that which I'm also a fan of as well. You guys do a good job at backing up both approval voting and star voting. And before we get into the segment about the problems with RCV, I want to also ask, before we do that, is why, as an organization, did you decide to back up both voting method reforms? What are the positives that you guys as a group has seen in both voting methods?
Yeah, so in general, the Equal Vote Coalition supports most any voting method that is equal. That provides an equal vote and an equally weighted vote, which is what we talked about earlier. The Equal Vote Coalition also has like a recommended reform, a recommended voting method based on the type of ballot that you want to use. So if you want a very like traditional looking ballot, keep things simple, the absolute most minimal change, biggest bang for your buck, approval voting is what we support. If you want a rated or a scored ballot, a 5-star ballot is what we call it, we recommend star voting. If you like ranking instead, or you're already using a ranked ballot, then we have another proposal that we recommend, which is called ranked robin. And so regardless of which type of ballot you're going with, we have a recommended proposal for you. And because that's the core of what it is like there is a separate sister organization called Star Voting Action that is focused just on star voting. But the Equal Vote Coalition has a broader mission about research and education. And so we endorse a slate of reforms, and there's many ways that we fit into the electoral reform music. It's quite broad. There's lots of different avenues of electoral reform that exist. So we it's inclusivity and as well as legal viability is another consideration. And all of this is like the laws are just different everywhere, and some proposals will have better legal viability than others. And we're committed to, we just want good voting for voters. We want to deliver on the promises, and there are multiple ways to get there. And so we support these multiple ways.
That's awesome. I really do love that inclusivity with each other. You're basically creating a good coalition of voting method reform people, from people who support star voting, right, Robin, and approval voting. But at the heart of it, you guys all agree that it is the voting that matters, like the equal vote that you have mentioned. And in my opinion, that is amazing.
And it's a minimum bar. Most voting methods pass the equal vote test, or the test of balance is what it's called. Most voting methods pass it. It's a low bar, but it's like if you can at least do that, you're on the right track is where we're at with that. All of our proposed reforms pass the test of balance, and there are many others that do as well.
So we have mentioned ranked choice voting, which is the elephant in the room, sadly. So, Sass, I was wondering if you can describe to the viewer what is ranked choice voting. What are the things that they claim that they want to fix with their voting system, and how so far, even though with their rapid momentum, they have from you have basically failed on the things that they want to champion, basically with their voting method.
Yeah. So, I debate whether they actually have momentum, which we'll get to round two. But so I don't know if we have a slide for it or not. But with ranked choice voting, voters rank candidates in order of preference. You are not allowed to rank multiple candidates equally. That could void your entire ballot, depending on the rules of your jurisdiction. And candidates left blank are ranked last. This is not the ranked choice voting slide that I'm talking about. I'm talking about one with the ballot. We might not have one. That's fine. The way that ranked choice voting is tallied is in each round. So votes are tallied in rounds. In each round, your vote counts toward the highest ranked remaining candidate on your ballot, if any. Otherwise, I think it'd be helpful if we took this slide down. I think this is going to be distracting because it's a lot of jargon that I'm trying to get through. So the way that ranked choice voting is tallied is it's tallied in rounds. In each round, your vote counts as toward the highest ranked remaining candidate on your ballot, if any. Otherwise, your vote is discarded. If a candidate has a majority of remaining votes in a round, they are elected. Otherwise, the candidate with the fewest remaining votes is eliminated. There's a lot going on here. it's kind of this double-nested if statement thing going on. There's, if all the candidates you ranked are eliminated before the final round of the tally, your ballot is discarded, your vote is discarded, it becomes exhausted or inactive, but it's not included in the final tally in any capacity, unlike the current system where even if you vote for a non-viable candidate, your vote is still counted. And you might not be able to rank all the candidates. So maybe you fill out your ballot correctly, you rank all the candidates, but your ballot still gets exhausted. That's concerning. The other thing to note here is that in each round of the tally, your vote is still only able to support just one candidate at a time, just like the current system, just like choose one voting. It's no different. It's exactly the same. So at its core, ranked choice voting really is just iterating the current system over and over again. Well, you can't fix the problems of the current system by just repeating it again and again and again. We've been doing that for 200 years. And so it doesn't really solve the problems that we're seeking to solve. We have all these promises about your vote counting no matter what, and eliminating the spoiler effect, and delivering better representation. And if your first choice is eliminated, your second choice will be counted. And ranked choice voting doesn't actually do these things. And the thing is, if it did, if ranked choice voting did all of the things that a lot of advocates, are trying to make happen, they have the right goals. If it did those things, we would all just be behind ranked choice voting. There's no reason to go anywhere else in that case. The reason that we're advocating for these other methods is because ranked choice voting does not deliver on the promises of voting method reform. And it's really problematic because it's being oversold and under-delivering. It's being sold that it's going to achieve all these things, and then it doesn't. And then voters feel betrayed, and their trust is broken, and they repeal it, or they vote no on it, or it gets statewide bans, or they don't renew pilot programs. It also runs into a lot of legal viability issues as well. I could list off, Sarasota, Florida, Memphis, Tennessee, Austin, Texas. There are now 5 cities in Michigan that have adopted ranked choice voting, but are not able to legally implement it because of state law that other voting methods wouldn't have this problem with. So ranked choice voting has a lot of these kind of core problems, and it's really a concern. And it's important that we go through the effort of changing one of the most fundamental parts of our democracy, that we do it, it's well considered, and that we really deliver on the promises, and we make sure that we're doing what we need to do for voters, and that we're really coming at them with a well-considered solution. It's the reason star voting exists. Star voting was invented because ranked choice voting doesn't deliver on its promises. It's the reason ranked robin exists. Ranked robin was invented. I invented ranked robin when I got sick of hearing Andrew Yang go talk about ranked choice voting and not actually know how to explain it. And I was like, all right, I've just been on the back burner. I got to go do this. And so now, to be clear, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I didn't come up with it out of nowhere. It's not brand new. It's the newest, oldest voting method is the way I've described it before. And we can talk about it in a minute here. But it's we really just want it. It's all about the voters. That's where we're coming from.
A lot to take in so far. So you do mention that RCV, the reason why you guys push star voting, approval voting, and even ranked robin, which I hope to also introduce to the crowd. So one of the things that people in the voting method community are seeing, and what people also want in general, is because of the polarization that we're seeing so far in this country, there has been polls and surveys showing that people want a third choice. And so far in these third choice parties, like these third parties, we're seeing them also get active within the voting method community. Libertarians, Green Party, Socialists, you name them. And a lot of them have, from what I have seen so far, has piggyback around the momentum of RCV. And one of the promises that RCV does it's just one of those blunt promises they make is, if you support RCV, you'll get more third party candidates to win elections. And so far, where RCV has been used, that has sadly been not the case so far. And before I go into my rant about that, I was wondering if you can like provide like a good argument of like why RCV fails even third parties as well.
Yeah, good question. So fundamentally, it's the same thing I said before, that it's just choose one voting over and over again. But what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to help. The reason that people think ranked choice voting will enable third parties to become viable, I'm going to take that abstract reasoning that they have, I'm going to put it into words and then explain why it doesn't work. So in your brain, the reason that you think ranked choice voting is going to help third parties is you see it as a lot of voters right now strategically vote for one of the two major parties, but ranked choice voting would give them the security to vote for a third party. And if you get enough votes for a third party, then they can end up winning. The reason that this doesn't work is because all of the voters who are strategically voting for a major party rather than honestly voting for a major party are not one block. They're not a single faction. You've got far left, far right. You've got in the center. These are different factions of voters all over the place and intertwined in between and outside of the major parties. And so you actually have like a ton of splitting among all of these voters. Let's say they do actually put a third party first on their ballot. Well, the voters over on here, I'll mirror it for you all. The voters over on the far left, their first choice may be a far left candidate, but their second choice is not going to be a far right candidate. It's going to be the Democrat. And the voters over on the far right, their first choice might be a far right candidate, but their second choice is not going to be the Democrat. It's going to be the Republican. And then the voters in the middle, they're going to be split between the Democrats and the Republicans where their second choices go. It's not going to go out to the far left or far right. And so the reality is the reason that the Democrats and Republicans are the two major parties is because those are the two biggest factions in the U.S. right now. And so in order to get additional factions to become viable, you have to do a better job of solving some of these fundamental problems that I've been talking about, some of these mechanical issues. And so, but what ranked choice voting does, really interestingly, is like, well, first, let's talk about the spoiler effect, right? So spoiler effect is kind of a derivation of vote splitting. So the spoiler effect is, you have two major candidates and then some third candidate runs and they steal a bunch of votes away from the winner between those two, and it flips the election to the other side. The spoiler effect does cause the wrong duopoly candidate to win. The other thing the spoiler effect does, though, is it gives minor parties leverage over major parties to move on particular issues. Now, you all are the progressive caucus of the Democratic Party of Arkansas. Much like the Green Party, this is also kind of in your mandate that, like, maybe you're not always maybe you can't win a given election, but maybe you can threaten the establishment with a spoiler candidate to get the establishment to move on a particular issue. Under the current system, you have that power. That's the second thing that the spoiler effect does, is it gives this kind of weird leverage to minor parties. Well, in ranked choice voting, it eliminates that leverage. It takes away that part of the spoiler effect that gives minor parties leverage to move major parties on individual issues, but it does not allow third parties to win or minor factions to win for the reasons that I stated before. So what ranked choice voting does is it helps to ensure that the correct duopoly candidate wins, which is an improvement over the current system. I think that there are a lot of trade-offs that come with that for ranked choice voting. I haven't even talked about having to do all the tabulation of ranked choice voting centrally rather than distributed, which is what we currently do. So for a faction like yourselves, ranked choice voting is actually more along the lines of, oh no, we're not going to win with ranked choice voting any more likely than we would have under Choose One, but now we've also lost our leverage. So for minor parties, ranked choice voting is like even worse. It's something you have to really, really consider and really understand fundamentally to ensure that you're not, again, none of these methods, bias in favor of any right or left on the political spectrum. It's just understanding how all of this kind of works together, and you just have to make informed decisions about where you're going to put your energy behind what proposals you support.
Wow, that was a really good critique. So of that broken promise that RCD sells to third parties. I want to say thank you for that. So we're at the 15-minute mark, and I want to allow you to also be able to introduce your new Void method reform, Rank Robin. And at the last 10-minute mark, we're going to take the Q&A of people asking you questions about like Void method reform. So with these like 4 minutes now, can you like give it like a quick introduction, like what is Rank Robin and what Rank Robin proposes to do? Like what does Rank Robin? How does Rank Robin help overall?
Yeah, we have a ranked robin slide or two. Yeah, so this one's I've got to update this graphic. So in ranked robin, voters rank candidates. You are allowed to rank multiple candidates equally. That's okay under ranked robin. And then candidates left blank are ranked last. And then I'm going to just sum up the whole rest of this graphic with one sentence. Elect the candidate preferred over the most others. Boom. That's it. That's the tally. You elect the candidate preferred over the most others. That's it. I can dive a little bit deeper into that, what exactly that means, how exactly that works. So we see at the bottom here, candidates are compared in one-on-one matchups. A candidate wins a matchup if they are ranked higher than their opponent by more voters. Whichever candidate wins the most matchups is elected. And so we see a sample of just some of the head-to-head matchups, of the one-on-one matchups in this center one here. So we see... these are all of Andre's and Blake's matchups, plus and Carmen's matchups as well, but without Ella. And so in Andre versus Blake, 67% of voters ranked Andre higher, and 28% of voters ranked Blake higher than Andre. And so that win goes to Andre. Carmen versus Andre, 82% ranked Carmen higher, 14% ranked Andre higher. And then, a couple voters ranked them equally because they're allowed to. And they're not ignored. It's just an equal preference between those two in that particular matchup. And it goes down and down and down through all of them. And then the results are each candidate's number of matchup wins. And so we see here Carmen won the most matchups. They won 4 out of 5 of their they won all 4 of their matchups, which is the most likely scenario, is that one candidate beats every other candidate head to head. That's the most likely scenario. And then it just goes down to there. David won 3 of them. Carmen was the only one they lost to. Andre won 2. Ella won 1. Blake lost all of their head to head matchups, all their one-on-one matchups. So this is ranked robin. The tally is much simpler than ranked choice voting. Like I said, it's just elect the candidate preferred over the most others. That's it. That's the simple way of explaining it. This is a fantastic upgrade for jurisdictions that already have a ranked ballot, because if you switch to, let's say, star voting, then your favorite candidate, instead of marking them on the leftmost bubble, then you have to mark them on the rightmost bubble. That's really bad for voters. So if you already have a ranked ballot, instead of upgrading to star voting, you should upgrade to ranked robin. So it allows you to rank multiple candidates equally, which makes it harder to void your ballot accidentally. So it's more likely that your ballot will actually be counted, especially, voter education is critical, instructions are critical, but voters, we've seen, low income and low education voters, it's a more complex ballot than the current system, period. It just is. And so we want to give as much flexibility as we can for that. And the tally can be done distributed locally, decentralized. So every precinct or every county can just tally their own ballots and then publish those results to the public at large. And then anyone anywhere can take all these results from all these different places and then just keep adding them up and just find the overall result. And so if you got 1,000 people agreeing on who the winner is, then you could be confident that the math was done right. And so this simplifies your electoral process back to what the traditional system is, and makes it compatible with risk limiting audits and everything else that you want, local recounts and tallies. Allows you to retain ballots locally as well. You don't have to put them on trains and planes and trucks. before you even know who the results are, what the results are. You can find out your results on election night, which is really great. And so this really, you know, delivers on all of the promises, and it keeps it simple. And you can, one of the things I love about Ranked Robin is that you can keep diving into the results deeper and deeper and deeper on election night, which just makes election night more entertaining, in my opinion. Like, you have your top level results, and you can just kind of pick out these individual head-to-head matchups. It's really fun.
Wow, very interesting concept. And I welcome all the viewers to check out the website, Equal Vote Coalition, start voting as well, and learn more about those voting methods. So now we're entering into the Q&A, and I want to welcome one of our guests to ask you questions. We're going to open up the Q&A. Let's bring them on board. Oh, here we go. So from Kenneth, you want to how have some of these voting methods been successfully initiated and used?
Yeah, so like I said, you know, approval voting has been successfully adopted and implemented and used in 2 elections each, in Fargo, North Dakota, and St. Louis, Missouri. Star voting is on the ballot in Eugene, Oregon this May. And so Eugene City voters will have an opportunity to vote yes on star voting, to vote for better voting. And then we'll be using star voting for city elections like city council and mayor. So super excited for that. Star voting is a modern proposal. It was invented in Eugene in 2014. Advocacy started in about 2017. So we're really, really pumped. I'm really excited. I think we're going to win this. And then, like I said, there's all sorts of ongoing efforts for star and approval across the country. And, you know, interest is gaining quickly for Ranked Robin. You know, and so we're just starting to get our caucus together, and I'm super excited about finding the people who really are passionate about Ranked Robin to work on it. And then ranked choice voting has been used in about 60 jurisdictions. It's down to about 50, and it's probably going to go down to about 40 pretty soon. And so ranked choice voting is really, really collapsing under its own weight, is maybe one way of describing it. But yeah, it's going to be, I really, you know, I want to first say unequivocally, the Equal Vote Coalition is against ranked choice voting bans, like outright bans at the state level. That hurts all the voting method reform. And a lot of these bans, you know, so far, the ones that have been successful have only been ranked choice voting, but others have tried and failed that have included other voting methods. And it hurts the whole movement. And so that I'm not into, but I am into minimum standards, saying we need local tallies, or we need an equal vote, or you know, whatever your standards may be, as long as they're sensible. That I'm super into, but outright bans is not the route. And for repeals, like, I would rather you upgrade. I'd rather you upgrade to Ranked Robin than repeal. And so now we have a proposal for that, and we want to put some energy behind that, because, you know, these voters have been promised something, and I really just want to deliver. So, you know, we've been talking to some of the anti-RCV groups, and we've made a lot of headway. They really like us, because, you know, we are coming at it with a really factual view, and they don't seem to be as against the other proposals as they are against ranked choice voting. And so, I think a lot of that comes down to the tally. But sorry, I'm taking up a lot of time.
So, Seth, we got another question from Kat. Is there any drawbacks to Ranked Robin voting?
I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect voting method. Gibbard proved that in Gibbard's theorem. You know, there's what I would say with drawbacks is, like, what we're trying to do is, like, outside of a couple of minimum standards that are, like, really easy things to pass for single winner voting methods, things like summability, monotonicity, eliminating vote splitting, which is, like, the technicalities are not important. For everything else, we're really measuring, like, what is the frequency at which, like, these problems occur, and what is the severity of them, and, like, what is the likelihood, or, like, what are the incentives, right? So we're looking at, like, how strongly does this voting method incentivize you to vote honestly, or vote something that looks like honesty, rather than voting strategically? Like, is that, if you vote honestly, is your vote going to work in your favor? We're looking at candidate incentive distribution, which is a thing where it's like, how incentivized is a candidate to appeal to a given voter based on how much that voter already likes them? Well, we want it to be broad. We want candidates to appeal broadly, generally, as well as, get a strong base of support. Star voting measures both. And there's some philosophical choices about what types of candidates you want to win elections. I think a lot of that it really comes down to single winner versus multi-winner kind of things. I'm not going to give you any specific drawbacks of ranked robin. I can give you some really technical theoretical stuff. The ranked method that passes monotonicity, therefore it fails independence of irrelevant alternatives, but that's only applicable when there's not a Condorcet winner. It's a super, it's ridiculous. There's not enough time to go over that.
Very technical.
So I'm not going to say that ranked robin doesn't have any drawbacks, but you have to really dig deep to start finding anything that's practicable. That's what I would say is there's nothing practicable. There's nothing that you can practice that you're going to find with problems with ranked robin. A lot of it's theoretical.
Gotcha. So I got one more question. Actually, it's actually to our co-host Ryan. Ryan, ask away.
So real quick, with specifically for federal, with Mary Patola and the all of a sudden occurrence that we see in Maine with Susan Collins being an actual competitive district now, what do we tell Democrats who are seeing these federal contests all of a sudden become super competitive for them? What do we tell them with these RCV essentially victories for now, as you're saying?
I'm not super familiar with what's happening in Maine. In Alaska, Mary Peltola, that first election, it's not just ranked choice voting, it's also combined with an integrated primary or an open primary, which is a term that's been co-opted and it's confusing. They use choose one voting, but all the candidates ran on the same ballot. It allowed 2 Republicans to go on to the special general election in August of 2022. And those 2 Republicans actually split the vote. Nick Begich should have won that election. We have the full ballot data, and voters preferred Nick Begich head-to-head over both Peltola and Palin. But the way that ranked choice voting is tallied is it elected the wrong candidate. I don't have time to get into that right now. But the point is, this can happen to Democrats too. If Democrats can split the vote as well, ranked choice voting doesn't protect against that. It happened to screw over Republicans. In Burlington, Vermont, and Alaska are kind of the 2 most high profile. There are other examples, but those are the 2 most high profile elections that are often referred to. But it's that's just chance. It can absolutely happen to Democrats and screw them over. The solution is, the first thing you have to do is eliminate vote splitting, and you need a different voting method. So that's really what it comes down to. And you can use that just in your partisan primary if you want in a Maine. Or maybe they are going to open primaries. I don't remember now. I think I saw a thing about that. But it doesn't just have to be for the general election. An individual party can decide we want to send better candidates to the general election, and if we use a better voting method, we're going to have a better shot in the general election.
Wow, that was really good. So with 1 minute left, I'm going to close off, and I want to say a big appreciation to Sass, who I'm also proud to say my friend as well. And if any viewer right now has any questions or about these voting method reforms, again, I greatly would recommend to look up equalvotecoalition.com or Star Voting, or even the ally organizations such as Center for Elections on Science, which does approval voting. Really great content stuff about learning about these voting methods and also doing research as well. You have anything else to say, Sass?
The website is equal.vote. That's the website, equal.vote. But thank you for having me on. This has been wonderful. And every Tuesday evening, I host an open democracy discussion at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. Anybody, anywhere is invited to attend and ask questions about voting science, democratic mechanics, or voting method reform, and receive live personalized answers from folks who are active in the space. Miguel is there pretty often. Obviously, I'm there every week. It's the same Google Meet link. You can find it. You go to starvoting.org/events. You can find individual event links there and get the Google Meet link. But thank you all so much. Really appreciate you having me on.
We appreciate you too, Sass. Good luck with the work. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.